Wow, I'm so.
Let's see the color of your coin.
Ah, man, it's a lot. I'm gonna have to sleep on it. But it felt so good to spend so much time with those characters after all the fighting was done. I don't know why it's taken 10 years for us to see the characters get this kind of love, but it's exactly what I feel like I've wanted all along. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Deeg Podcast. I'm Deeg, and I'm here today to bring you Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons. It finally happened. Yes. Okay, so I had every intention in my heart to bring to you today a fully fledged Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons review, recommendation, all the classics. I even took a whole week off of my 9 to 5 in order to play End of Dragons and get ready to tell you what I think about it and get excited about it or not. Or not. But then, as they say, life happened. I learned I would be moving out of my apartment at the end of the month, and then my whole life became about addressing that problem. Well, as you can see, I found one. I'm here. Things are finally starting to settle down, and it's time for me to actually tell you what I think about Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons. Of course, there's only one problem. After playing this game, you know, what was it, a month and a half ago now? It doesn't sit so fresh inside of me anymore. I don't remember it that well. I can't access it in the way that I'd like to give you a really good and compelling impression. I thought about ways to fix this problem. Maybe I'll play through the story again a second time to refresh the memory. Maybe I'll talk to some people about it. But then when I looked at this problem, I ended up looking back over my gameplay VODs. Because yes, I streamed my entire playthrough. You can find it on my YouTube. And I realized that what I was looking for was actually right there. I don't know what got into me, what compelled me, but for whatever reason, I realized that I had actually taken somewhere between 5, 10, or 15 minutes to give you my commentary and impressions after every single play session over the 5 days, Monday through Friday, that I played through and completed the campaign of Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons. And I'm going to present that to you here today. It's not a review. I'm calling it a commentary. I think that's appropriate. And I'm going to give you a couple of qualifying remarks before we get into it. First off, big picture, End of Dragons was amazing. Great. I recommend it. If you're a Guild Wars 2 fan, you owe it to yourself to experience what I think is the best version of Guild Wars 2. If Heart of Thorns was a small expansion trying to be big and Path of Fire was a big expansion trying to be small, I really feel End of Dragons occupies a really effective middle path niche between its two elder siblings. It, of course, returns us to Cantha, a place that we've all been excited to go back to for years and years since Guild Wars 1 factions. And it has undeniably the best of so much of what this game has to offer. So that out of the way. Now, what do I look for from Guild Wars 2? I have been through big pumper stages of this game where I want it to be very, very good. Lots of group instance content. I have the raid legendary armor on my main. But that period is past for me. So I'm not going to look so closely at things like strikes, things like balance, things like the CMs, which admittedly were not out when I played. They're actually coming out right now as this is being published. So that's exciting. Admittedly, I've become a casual Guild Wars 2 player who understands the hardcore mindset, but it's not where I sit day to day anymore. At least I think I understand it. And so my impressions are going to be from that perspective. So get that out of the way. Um, I played the whole experience more or less with my MMO gaming buddy, Will. You'll hear me talk about him. I call him Will or Maxentius, Max being his the alias he uses for gaming. And Will is he played Guild Wars 2 a little bit back at release, but he's pretty new to most of the game. And it was really fun for me seeing the game through his eyes as well as through my own. And you'll hear through a few points in this commentary that I appeal to him, ask him what he thinks, or he'll chirp in. So that's who that is. If you hear that, someone riding along in the commentary. Additionally, because this was all live, I interact with my chat a little bit. So you hear some of my producers, like Kai and Henry and Wist, all jump in to say what they think, and I'll respond to them. This was all done live, but looking back on it, I think it actually captures exactly what I feel like I need to say about End of Dragons, which is very simply that it is the first time I have seen Guild Wars 2 do the thing that I most now seem to crave from it, which is to produce a compelling world full of character driven story moments. With that said, let's go to day one, Monday at the start of the week. I'll catch you on the other side. All right. Well, let's recap. Day one, End of Dragons. We unlocked fishing, we unlocked skiffs, and the Jade bot. Jade bot is ridiculously involved. I gotta tell you,
Yeah.
the complexity of it is something of a turn off. But I'm sure it'll be that kind of thing that like you kind of figure it out, and it's just like,
As you go, yeah.
you know, one potential strength about the Jade bot that I appreciate, yeah, day one, part two, that's right, Henry, is that it seems like it could be like a singular axis to expand across multiple Living World episodes. Like, one of the things about Living World seasons is Arena's done a very good job of always challenging themselves to make some kind of new open world mechanic. But one of the problems they had, and this was especially endemic in season 3, is that they would make these mechanics but only make them work in the one new map they're making, rather than making something that actually gave you some element of progression for your entire character. I remember before Path of Fire came out, I actually made a post on Reddit saying it really, really, really sucks that all these Living World Season 3 masteries aren't going to mean shit in expansion. It kind of puts to lie to the idea of progression. They started fixing that. They started putting stuff in. And I wonder if the Jade bot is a sort of next level effort to improve the horizontal integration of the kinds of horizontal power that we get over time. And I especially like that it's wrapped up in some kind of a skin, which, by the way, I still can't figure out how to show on my character. I want to see the Jade bot. I want it to float around me while I'm doing shit.
That would be cool.
But I just can't get him to show up. Maybe they only show up when they're doing stuff. Or maybe I have to get the service chip installed first. I don't know. But I think that Seitung province is a win for me. I'm enchanted by it. I'm enchanted by both these zones I've seen so far. Like I mentioned, I'm so impressed by the size and also the density of both these areas. And I wonder how much that impressive feat contributes to this sense of a vacancy in these maps. Maybe we'll really only see big groupings of people at like the valuable events over time.
Like the
Maybe it's
really, really valuable ones.
Yeah, like maybe that's not a bad thing. I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. I gotta think about that. Because there are a lot of things in this game that are fun to do, like go exploring, you and maybe your buddy. But as soon as you start throwing a whole group of people at them, the events just fall over, and it gets hard to experience them at a reasonable pace because the group just kind of carries you along. Since we've gotten to Cantha, I felt really good about all the character stuff. Some of the character stuff before Cantha was a little... I don't know, it was a little... The ratio of character stuff to plot was a little too high. Like, things weren't moving ahead enough for the amount of emotional exposition that was attempting to happen. But then again, maybe that's my fault because I'm a completionist and I click on every single dialogue option. Maybe most people who wouldn't bother with that shit felt fine. I don't know. Curious, Will, do you do the side dialogue options before you go on, or you just do the main stuff?
No, I'll click the side ones.
Okay. But anyway, since we got here, and the new characters are interesting. The Empress, the Security Minister, June, of course, um, Yao, uh, Rama's a hoot and a half.
Yeah.
I like all the we talked about how the bureaucracy does this really cool job of putting us through processes that make human connection the most important thing that happens, which puts the storytelling about those human connections, and I like that. It's a real lowering of the stakes, which I really appreciate. And one of the things I like about expansions is they get to do that. Um, although I don't think Heart of Thorns or Path of Fire did a very good job of lowering the stakes at any point. Maybe Path of Fire at some points, but man, Heart of Thorns, it was a gallop, and even Path of Fire was very much like you're caught between a dragon and a god, and go kill him. Go get him, tiger. Conflict here is a little more subtle. It's like, oh, we're here, and things are happening. And even though we're making our way through it, it's not like we have some great problem we're trying to solve. And I kind of like that. It's more like we have an opportunity to explore. And it's a much more open and expansive feeling. It reminds me a lot more of the way the personal story felt when you first played through it. At least up until the Seitung kind of coalesced in the last 20 to 30 levels. I like that. I'm liking the Blade Sworn a lot, and to be honest with you, from my experience in the beta test, I was not expecting to enjoy the Blade Sworn that much. I think part of it is they tightened up the amount of time Dragon Trigger takes, so it's a lot less sitting around and waiting. All the world interactions are good. Everything that's already good about Guild Wars is good here so far. But the scale of it and the density is really impressing me. And the aesthetic of Seitung province was fucking nailed. It might be too dense. There might be too much stuff going on. There might not be enough just rolling countryside without shit happening. I don't know. And what little I've seen of Kaineng's been pretty great so far too. I think that's one of the main takeaways for open world stuff. These maps, they don't on paper they don't look as big as the Path of Fire maps, but I think in actuality, in terms of play space, they're much larger. Because those Path of Fire maps are designed around traversal, and there's a lot of empty space between stuff to do. A lot less empty space than you see here. I don't know. This feels kind of like, in terms of open world design, so far, it feels like a victory lap for Arena. And we'll see if that sense continues as we explore the third and fourth map and go down the story. Also, the reduction of stakes is making the storytelling a lot more palatable. And the moments where we do get to connect with a character are a lot more bearable because we aren't like submitting ourselves to soap opera level character stuff. While, a dragon is breathing fire on us. I'd say as far as day one goes, this has met every expectation that I've had and exceeded a few others. And one of the only head scratchingers is exactly what you called out. That I am not seeing as many people as I expected, and I don't know exactly what that means.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's an artifact of the map design. I don't know if it has to do with shard allocation and allotment, or if it is reflective of perhaps a not very successful launch in terms of numbers. Monday is a weird day to launch an MMO, I think.
Yeah, it totally is.
There's a lot of competition. Sorry, is something else you were going to say?
No. Without saying too much, it's interesting to hear you say all these thoughts tomorrow when you play I'm going to be intrigued to know if they change it all.
That's why I'm doing these little end of the stream reflections, because I want to go back and see what I thought, see how my opinion changes over the days. Because I'm going to be playing every day this week. I'm putting in a lot of time. And, but yeah, in terms of like for next session, what I feel really excited about is I'm still learning how to play Bladesworn, so I still feel very excited about those combat interactions. I am very excited to learn about the next couple maps. I feel like the story at this point can go kind of anywhere. Having the massive prompt that Oreen is kind of in a debilitated state, which is a little bit nice because she's been a little bit of a trump card for us for a long time. And the question of why isn't she taking action has always been one we didn't have a good answer to. I feel like. And I like how they got right out of the way the introduction of the deep sea dragon. Like they didn't fuck around with us. I feel like they fucked around with us for way too long when it comes to that. And getting it out of the way early, I really appreciated that as a long term fan. Yeah, like this is the dragon. This is what her motivation is. This is what her name is. It's like, okay, bam, bam, bam. At least her stated motivation. I liked all of that. It makes me excited. You know what I think actually, is I am asking myself, if these are the last good days of Guild Wars 2, because I still don't know if they're ever going to make another expansion, to be honest.
It kind of feels like there's no way, but you never know, I suppose.
I look at this level of effort and I ask myself, can they do this again?
No.
So, I know for a fact that with Season 4, which was published at the end of 2018 and early 2019, that the studio members did not know how Guild Wars 2 would continue after that. And I talked to multiple members of that team who put in an egregious amount of effort and passion into the end of that season, the Kralkatorrik arc. By the way, well, if you go back and play anything, man, I would suggest the Path of Fire expansion in Season 4. Especially the last 3 episodes of Season 4 as incredible set pieces for this game.
Okay.
Yeah, they're so good. Also, Episode 5, Season 4, Thunderhead Peak.
That one, revisiting Thunderhead Peak does sound interesting.
Yeah, I figured that would perk you up. But I know for a fact that the studio pushed really hard because they didn't know what was going to happen. And then we went into that weird Icebrood Saga era where it's like, okay, the game's not dead, but we're also not making expansions, and no one really knows what any of it means. And it seems like the studio didn't even know what it meant. And then, okay, give the green light for an expansion. Let's go. Are we seeing something like that now? Where we're seeing this incredible passion project get this incredible release from this team that doesn't have any idea what the future of the game looks like? We don't know as a community, but do the developers know? Does the studio know? These are the questions I think about.
All good ones.
Okay. William, YouTube friends, we'll be back tomorrow. GG friends. Have a great night. Okay. So, middle of day 2, maybe end of day 2. I hope it's the middle. End of Dragons. Spent almost a whole session, 3+ hours, just bopping around Kaineng City. And I'm really, really enjoying this space right now. We did some of the events, completely failed to do the meta event because the map seems to be too empty. Hoping that's a problem that gets solved by some back-end settings that I can throw. Spent a lot of time over in Old Kaineng. There's a cool little event chain down there where you unite the souls of 2 lost lovers. And a bunch of lore surrounding it. That was very satisfying. Old Kaineng area really feels a lot like Guild Wars 1 to me. It's really cool. But in general, like, I mentioned this before when I was watching the live streams, of Kaineng. It didn't really come through to me what they were trying to do. I didn't really have a good sense of place from it. But now that I'm here, I get it, and it's working for me. And almost everywhere you go, there's something to pay attention to. It's really cool. Look at that. Air conditioners.
Give our Kaineng studio a new Kaineng. Or his own recipe. Stay sharp, Cantha.
I'm sure that the newness of it will wear, but I'm having a great time just soaking in Cantha right now. Didn't get a lot of story done, but we'll continue to do more next time. I guess that's it for thoughts. I'll be around later. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day or night. I'll catch you on the flip side. Okay, let's recap day 3 of End of Dragons. So as you can see, I've arrived here at Arborstone after the many a bombshell story path that took us through the Jade facility where we met Suwan, the mother of all Elder Dragons and apparently the singular force responsible for all life on Tyria. And if things go poorly, perhaps the singular life force responsible for the death of all life on Tyria. A lot of things going on. Ankka, her role has escalated. It continues to escalate. She becomes more and more important, more and more of the main enemy. And I'm not going to summarize the whole plot. I'm just going to kind of give a gestalt an impression of my experience and say I'm still having an incredible time. I'm still so impressed by the density and the quality of the story beats, the writing, the performances, the presentation of the areas, the Yong facility, whatever it was called, where we met Su Wong, the Elder Dragon of Water, was just amazing. The tour we did where we were on the moving elevator thingamajiggy, and we got the lecture from June. We learned a lot about June and her motivations. And I was just saying that before I started the recap, that I've been so impressed with all the character stuff in Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons. And it's a subtle thing if you're clicking through dialogue, but if you're paying attention to it, it makes a massive difference. And I can summarize it succinctly by saying, you know it's done well when, number one, you understand the motivations of all the characters you're spending time with, and number two, those characters take actions that are based on those motivations. Now, the real extra credit is when those motivations change over time based on the outcomes of those actions. That's the real extra credit. We aren't that far enough along in the story, but we've seen a few things, like Detective Rama's posture towards us has changed as he's gotten to know us. A man who is a detective, and he's kind of, hard-bitten and skeptical. But he decided to trust us. In fact, he would have fought for us if necessary at one point. All the character stuff is not just a step, but a leap above what we have seen from the character writing in Guild Wars 2 in prior work. Yeah. The set pieces, they're still great, and we've had some really great set pieces in Guild Wars 2 before, but the thing that's really jumping out at me is that it's the character writing. That is the thing right now that is defining End of Dragons for me. Yes, the set pieces are great. Yeah, the combat's good. The elite spec is fun. Of course, Cantha's incredible. It looks fantastic, and it feels so cool and distinct in this setting. All those things are great. The music, the sounds, I mentioned the voice performances, but it's the character writing that's really jumping out at me right now on day 3 as a thing that is where Guild Wars 2 is doing something I've never seen it do as well before. It's the best this game has produced yet. Arborstone and the map beds within Echovald Wilds is the third of 4 maps. I don't really know how far I am through this story, I've done this for probably like what 20 hours now. Um, I'm a little too in it to pull my view all the way back out, which I definitely will when I get through everything. Honestly, I probably just spent a good 4, 5, maybe 6 hours just exploring Kaineng in the last couple of days. And moving on from it felt good. But there's still so much more that's left for me to do there. I haven't done the meta event. I haven't done all the events. I haven't explored all the points of interest, vistas, hero points. I haven't completed any of the maps. But I have been going slow and taking my time. And it's been a joy to do so. Um, Jade bots, I'm becoming more and more impressed with the things that they can do. And even though their complexity still seems unreasonable to me, I'm excited about um, engaging with them further and learning more. I'm also excited about how Jade bots can figure not into just the expansion story, but also to the Living World Season 6 that follows End of Dragons, which hasn't been announced, but which we can all guess is coming. If we can continue with Jade bots and this Arborstone kind of hub through all that content, that is such a long time for us to spend with such robust features and areas. And it makes me really want to sink in and, grab the popcorn and a comfy blanket and just wrap myself up in this experience, because I feel like it makes me feel like there's so much Guild Wars 2 I can look forward to enjoying. Not just the rest of the expansion content, but also the living world that that will spring forth from it. So I'm just having such a great time right now. And I'm having such a great time that I'm going to go sleep some more so that I can wake up and play again. And that'll really do it for me tonight, y'all. Thanks for hanging out. And I will catch y'all on the flip side. Okay, we're in day 4 of End of Dragons. Recapping my play session here of a few hours. I've just punched into the Echovald Forest for the very first time. I landed an Arborstone at the end of the last session. Today, it's been mainly poking around Echovald, doing a little bit of story, a lot of exploration. Been thinking about it a lot. Some of these really, let's call them important locations on the map, are really dense and very cool and fun. Like the Jade Brotherhood headquarters, I really enjoyed. I did that earlier. And this area I'm coming up to, the Moria Village, seems to have a lot going on. Arborstone, of course. But one thing I'm noticing is that there's a lot of... I'm getting a very like Heart of Thornsy vibe from some of the areas between these standout places, where you have these really long, sort of unremarkable, low, like... I think low density is the best way to think about it. Places full of nothing but twisting paths and enemy mobs, which is it's very Guild Wars 1-y, which is not necessarily a good or a bad thing. It's a callback, and it reminds me a lot of like Tangled Depths. It reminds me a lot of like maybe the Desolation in places too, where it's a lot of it is just kind of desolate. You navigate, you try not to die. I don't know how I feel about it. It feels a little less interesting to me than well, I take it back. It feels a lot less interesting to me than Seitung province, which had a lot of really well fleshed out areas and a high density of things, and of course Kaineng, which is a city map and has a huge amount of stuff, and it's remarkable in its density. I've been commenting on how much of a standard those two maps have set compared to previous sort of open world efforts from ArenaNet. And Echovald feels a little more spotty. It feels like there are real hotspots, and then in between the hotspots, there's a lot of very like less finished spaces. So I haven't explored all of Echovald. Maybe when I get through all of it and have a chance to maybe see the meta events play out, I'll feel differently. Looks like it goes through the old Fort Aspenwood, which is very exciting to me. Real Guild Wars 1 throwback. I haven't done a lot of story yet in this area. I did the cool spy stuff, which I really, really enjoyed. No, nothing to really just say positive or negative about the story. It was already setting a very cool tone, very character respecting and centric. It's still doing that. We're now learning about the Kestrels, and their role here in the Echovald, and how they kind of were sheltered by Kunavang, who is now our you know our supporter, or our kind of on our side or whatever. Anyway, hopefully I'll be back later tonight to play a little bit more, but I just wanted to take a minute to recap this session. Nothing is really jumping out at me about this, other than really what I was describing before. The fact that this feels a lot more like in terms of density, it feels a lot more like a solar system, like where there's huge areas where there's not much going on, and there's these small pockets of high density, high order, and it's very entropic in between, as opposed to like say like a planet or a continent where it's a lot of order and a lot less open void kind of spaces. I'm not sure that metaphor makes a lot of sense, but I'm gonna go with it for now. In any case, that'll do it. I'm going apartment hunting. Wish me luck.
Good luck.
Let's recap. Still in day 4. Came back for a quick session. Played a little bit of the Echovald meta event and completed the story here, which finished with the conclusion of the character arc of one Ankka. Probably one of the more interesting and roundly portrayed villains of the Guild Wars setting so far. I had a thought today about Ankka, and it was interesting. We learned that she was the actual villain, not my Trin. When we confronted my Trin in that Aetherblade hideout, and in the fight we had with my Trin, one of the things that she did was she sort of called on an illusion or a spirit of Scarlet, which is an interesting callback. Of course, my Trin's history was concomitant with Scarlet, so it made sense, but I think that there's also a sort of spiritual connection between Ankka and Scarlet, and they're both the same kind of character, done differently. Now, I didn't play through Season 1, so I don't have a connection with Scarlet. Not really. I didn't really get to see her at her best or her worst. What I know is I've seen in recaps, and what I've read and picked up as someone who started playing in Season 2. But the thing about Scarlet that never interested me was what her motivations were, because basically she was just a super genius who was 15 steps ahead of everyone and had this incredible passion to just change the world. And the why was never clear. It never seemed to be clear. Why was she like this? What made her this way? And I think that's what made her not interesting as a character. Not the set pieces, not her conclusion. But why should we care if Scarlet lives or dies? She's a bad person who did bad things. We play a game where we attack people who do bad things and kill them. That's okay. But it's not really the way people are they? People who do terrible things don't really do them to hit bullet points on a comic book portrayal of a villain. They're real people with interior lives who do things for reasons that make sense to them. And they have motivations that drive their behavior. And I think with Ankka, what we got to see is sort of a retread of the burn the world down genius archetype. sort of redo of the Scarlet story in a compressed form, for sure. And we got to understand Ankka's motivations. She's started off... She seemed to be a person who was sort of prone to negative emotion and to withdrawing onto herself. And then but she has an ambition and an ability. She went through some really terrible things, and that brought her to a dark place, and she gave up on the world. And not only that, she wanted to hurt the world that she felt hurt by. Now, I still feel like I would have liked to have known a little bit more about why Ankka felt she needed to revenge herself upon the world. I do feel like I understand, based on the mood she presents and what we know about her, like it fits. And maybe we don't need to know, really, what the reasons are, but the sense that I got from the Ankka story is that there were reasons, that she did have reasons that she lived through that made her want to hurt the world who hurt her. Scarlet, I don't know if there was enough there to be able to say that. And I think, again, it points back to what I've been saying earlier, that the character stuff here is just much better. It's much rounder. It's much more real feeling. It's probably the best character-driven storytelling I've seen in an MMO. Probably. Not that I've played every MMO or have a wide experience there to draw from, but... And you saw how Gork was affected, and the way Gork was affected makes sense. So now Ankka's dead, and my Trin is dead. The legacy of the Aether Blades is probably being put to bed here. And good for ArenaNet for not letting the Aether Blades die and sort of off screen. They showed us the end of my Trin and the end of my Trin's legacy, which truly culminates with Ankka. And who knows what will happen now? I mean, we'll find out, and probably tomorrow, actually. But I really appreciate Ankka. And I felt her death. And I felt what Gork felt when he looked at her and said to himself, I thought it would feel different. I thought this is what I wanted. Anyway, other notes about the session is Echovald hasn't come around for me yet. It says I've explored about 40% of it, so there's still a lot to see. But I feel like I have its number. I feel like I understand what it's doing. And I have to tell you, I don't feel drawn by it yet. It hasn't got me yet. Seitung province won me over early, and it kept winning me all the way through. Kaineng city, same thing, won me. This zone, there are so many spaces in it that don't feel like they were consciously designed by a human being for others to enjoy being in. And by enjoy, I don't mean like totter around and have a social club or tea. I mean to have some interesting thing happening that you should care about. Some moment, something unique, different. It feels windy and twisty and monochrome and feel flooded with enemies. And why are they there? I guess it's the wilds is the reason they're there, but I don't think we got a good enough reasoning for why the wilds are so overrun by hostile people. Why are they there? Why is it so hostile? For an expansion that's done put so much work into telling a political story, it feels like we were back in the Maguma, where it's like a big confusing place with a lot of punishing enemies. And what's interesting about it is the combat experience, but the combat experience was not interesting. Not really. What was going on with those enemies? It's just a bunch of enemies. Nothing special happening. There's no set-piece foes like all the incredibly well-engineered, unique Mordrum NPCs with their unique moves and their break bars and their things that they do, their mechanics. I haven't seen really any enemies like that in this game, in this expansion yet. That doesn't seem to be the thing that's good about it. At least not in the open world. And so the Echovald open world is a real letdown to me so far. After what I experienced at Seitung province and New Kaineng. And I'm still willing to be won over by it. This is not a final judgment. This is just an end of stream impression. Arborstone, I didn't realize I had the mastery unlocked. I didn't realize that unlocking stuff here was connected to the mastery, so I'm excited to flesh this place out. Yesterday, when I ended my stream, I talked about how knowing this place would be built out was such a cool feeling that I wanted to wrap myself up in, and I still feel that way. But after having been out in the rest of Echovald, I feel a lot less interested in this whole play space and the wilds in there. It feels a lot of the time like I'm just in a cardboard maze. Only the cardboard is the color of like weird green petrified wood. And what's the point of getting lost in it? What experience am I supposed to be having other than confusion? And why should it be confusing? Like, why does the game want me to be confused here? What's the payoff? What's the payoff? And you have these little villages, a few really well fleshed out areas that do feel like they kind of come out of the wilds. I like that. But I don't think they're enough to pay off on the miles and miles of pointless, samey, homogeneous, monochromatic, pointlessly punishing, pointlessly confusing, twisted wilds. Here's hoping that I learn it and see the value in it. Because I'll tell you, I've compared it a few times to Tangled Depths, the third map of the Heart of Thorns expansion, but the Tangled Depths weren't confusing to me in terms of why I would want to master them. The Tangled Depths were full of incredibly unique looking, well-presented, different kinds of opportunities and challenges. And it was a rainbow of both of experiences and of a visual palette. The confluence in the middle, all the various camps, the chalk hive areas. Yeah, there's a little bit of that sameness, but not throughout the entire map like Echovald. I don't know. I get the sense that there was a sense with Echovald of it needs to be good enough. And maybe it was the last priority to get right. And maybe when you compare it to Seitung and Kaineng and whatever's coming up last, this was the lowest priority, and it was the best thing to leave a little bit more under-designed, underpopulated, cooked. But it bums me out. Because the Echovald Forest is just like such a flavorful place, and these cathedrals with their stained glass are so beautiful, and I don't want to feel bored by them. I don't want to feel bored by them. Okay. That's it for thoughts. I'm the whole day tomorrow off. Last day of my my week off from work. All these rooms. Oh, this is really cool. Poke around this some more next time. Anyway, I'll see y'all then. I hope you have a good day or night. And yeah. Take it easy. Hello, friends. It's current day Deeg back once again. What you're about to see is a bit of a time jump, or it's going to feel like one, because I'm going to bring you to the moment where I completed End of Dragons and give you my immediate raw impressions of the entire experience. Okay? And I'm going to be not talking very much about the fourth and final map of End of Dragons, the Jade Sea, Dragon's End. It contains incredible story moments that are so important in resolving a 10-year timeline and conflict for this game and this community and this studio, and a meta event that has caused a lot of drama and discussion in the community, which I want to talk about more in the future. And in this incredible sense and vibe while you're there, that there is a storm just visible over the horizon that could mean the end of the world. It's just remarkable. But I'm not going to talk about that. No, I'm going to give you the big picture thoughts, and I want to prepare you for that because it might be a little jarring. So with that, let's turn it over to Dragon's Watch.
Okay, everyone's here. Well, friends, you're probably wondering why we asked you here today.
So much has happened in the last few years. There hasn't been much to count on.
But Jory and I realized that through all that, there's one thing that's always been true.
Something to look forward to at the end of every long battle.
A face like a candle when the whole world seemed dark. Jory, you've always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. This life we live has taken us everywhere. But as long as I wake up and see your face next to mine, I'm home. And that's why I'm asking you here, in front of all our friends, to marry me.
Cass, a life without you is no life for me. You stood by me through everything. Pulled me back from the brink more times than I want to remember. So that's why I'm asking. Will you marry me?
Yes!
I'm so happy!
You two deserve this.
So couldn't happen to a better couple.
It's about damn time.
Wait, didn't we all know that's why they asked us here?
Which
I
of
thought
you
it was
actually-
obvious.
Or did you both? I guess it doesn't matter. Congratulations!
This calls for a toast. To Kaz and Jory.
To Kaz and Jory.
To new beginnings with old friends.
There may be no more need for Dragon's Watch. There will always be a guild.
To Dragon's Watch.
To Dragon's Watch.
To Dragon's Watch.
Yeah.
To Dragon's Watch.
Yeah. Yeah, it's sappy. But have you been with them for 2,700 hours, Henry? Works for
Let's
me.
see the color
Works
of the
on
coin.
me. Wow. Wow.
Hi there.
Officially done with it, right?
That's it, man.
Nice. Oh yeah, there you are. Divinity's Reach. Perfect. I was gonna say.
Understandable. Wow, I'm so
Let's see the color of your coin.
ah man, it's a lot. I'm gonna have to sleep on it. But it felt so good to spend so much time with those characters after all the fighting was done. I don't know why it's taken 10 years for us to see the characters get this kind of love, but it's exactly what I feel like I've wanted all along.
There was really solid dialogue, I found.
Yes, the dialogue was so good. All the characters had complicated, interesting perspectives that made sense based on their experiences. It was just such good narrative writing. Fuck.
I'm leaving.
Anyway, I just love this work. I love how it got very big but ended very small. And the toast to Dragon's Watch with all the people there in their civilian clothes.
Yep.
It's an incredible signal of it's an incredible sense of an end. It's an incredible sense of an end. I don't know what to make of it really, in some sense. One of the things that ArenaNet told us a year ago, I guess a little less than a year ago, or like 9 months ago, when they showed up and told us what was going on, is that End of Dragons is not the end of Guild Wars 2. But this feels like the biggest end this game has ever had. And I mean, we've had big ends. The end of Season 4, the game could have been over then. And whatever that feeling was then, it is way stronger now. I mean, I think Path of Fire had set-piece combat moments that were almost as good as this. Almost as good as this. But it did not do any of this character stuff anywhere near as well. The only character from Path of Fire that felt like it had this kind of character depth was what's his face? The doomed offspring of Kralkator, whose name I can't think of. Blast? Is it Blast? Whist. Yes, I just finished. Blast had this incredible story. A short story, but an incredible one, full of pathos. And he ends up sacrificing himself to save us from Balthazar. I'm just processing this. I am so full of feelings. Oh my god, I don't even know what to do with them. I was not expecting that. All that void stuff just came out of nowhere, the personification, all that just felt weird. I mean, all the metaphysics shit has always been weird, Whist, don't you think? I don't know. I know a universe like this has to have metaphysics and it has to have rules. And it has to have rules that make sense, and the learning of a new rule is one of the biggest things that can happen in a universe like this with Void, but I don't know, maybe I learned long ago to not care about that shit. And I think ArenaNet is finally figuring that out too. They're just like, it's not actually the metaphysics that are important. It's the character stuff that's important. And maybe I'm completely biased. Maybe it's because I don't know.
I actually thought there were a couple characters I wanted to see more.
You'll find everything
but didn't after seeing them all at the...
So, but they kind of brought out new class and antagonists and just kind of wrote it off. Who cares, Whist? Like, really, why does that matter? Are they written off? I mean, there's gonna be more Guild Wars in the future, right? And Living World Season 6 will be make break after End of Dragons? What? For make break for what?
Melissa aid you.
What do you mean make break? The only make break expansion this game has ever had was Heart of Thorns. I think. Ever since then, it's just been how much money are we gonna pump into this golden goose? It's been how much are we gonna feed this golden goose? That's all it's been. You used to care. Why would the void enemies be the thing that you choose to not to worry about? I mean, okay, I kind of get it. Like, if you've been nose into the dirt of all the details of this world for years and been part of the speculation and all the random clues and shit. The thing about plot arcs that take a long time to pay off in MMOs is they give you the sense that there's someone at the wheel who knows where all these things are going long term. When the truth is, in game developer, you only really know what you're doing like for the next year and a half. And after that, it's like, who knows? They tied up so many things, the Elder Dragons, even the last instance in the bar. Yeah, they did tie up everything. It feels amazing. I mean, I don't know what comes next. I have no idea what comes next. It's a sense of freedom, though. It's like anything can come next.
Some say she's ineffective against the centaurs, and that bandits lurk around every corner.
I kind of wondered when we were fighting through the Arborstone, and especially after the June's leading up to the June estate instance, if June was going to become like the big antagonist for the next season. It feels bittersweet to you? Yeah. Well, it feels incredible to me because I lost my reason to care. I mean, the reasons that I cared about this game started fading to me the moment my wife stopped playing. And at that point, I put in my 2,000 hours. I was kind of deeply connected in with this world, and I wanted it to manifest something truly amazing. And part of that was me learning how to be here without her, and part of that was, I mean, it was kind of a liberation when she stopped playing too, because I got to focus on doing a lot of raiding. I got to focus on hardcore stuff that she would never be into. I mean, I did that stuff when we played together too, but it was very much in the sidelines. But then I did all that stuff, and I went hard, and I learned all the little lore details, and I learned that looking closer at this world didn't make it more alive. In fact, the thing that made it feel more alive is when I focus on myself. I don't know. It's a hard thing to explain. That's not really it. It's more like the value of any game is based on how relevant the skills that you develop to win the game are, and how many other games and how many other valuable games there are that the skills you learn can manifest in. I don't know. I mean, this is a story experience. It's not really that much skill going into it. But the thing about Guild Wars that I've never connected with this whole time, I've always found the metaphysics to be kind of fun. Like, metaphysics of almost any world can be interesting. Has been the characters, that they should be so interesting, and they're always so not. And they just kind of do things that are kind of archetypally correct, that get the plot going where it needs to go. There weren't that many moments where I felt like the characters were along for the ride in the plot. I always felt like the characters were driving the plot. Right up till the end, when we got to the Jade Sea, and it was all about Oreen and Su-Wan. And even the whole Oreen Su-Wan thing made Oreen a much better character. Because she had a mother to connect with, a grandmother to connect with. She had someone to lose. You realize that up until now, the only thing that Oreen could have lost would be us, which she'll never lose because we're the player character, or herself. But she had something to lose. That totally changes the stakes for her. And now that she's passed through that experience, we can see the things that she will do through the lens of that loss, or through the value of that connection before the loss. Like, there's just so many... You missed the Path of Exile launch in early Feb, so you kind of didn't get that honeymoon launch experience. EOE? Are you talking about Path of Exile, or you mean Path of Fire? I'm confused.
What? Well, Brent is the god of death.
Anyway. Maybe that was just me showing up at a restaurant and finding my favorite dish being lovingly prepared. Maybe that's all that it was. But my expectations for this experience were that my only... And I put this out there when I talked to Inks and Preston in the Heavyweights podcast, is all I want is for them to nail an ambiance for Cantha. Make it work. And they got so far past that. They meaningfully iterated on the way that they tell stories, both mechanically and narratively. I feel more hooked into the world of Cantha post-story than I ever felt with the Crystal Desert. Even the Maguma Jungle with what's it called? Heart of Thorns. Yes, that there were a whole bunch of meta events to go back and do, but I don't know. Like, I never felt as welcomed by those spaces as the spaces in Cantha are. Never felt as needed, as wanted, as much as like the human things that I know about myself being reflected in the game. So many of the little things that the characters said are actually pithy little aphorisms that we can carry into our lives and see in ourselves. You were going to use it to sort of tide you off till Elder Dragons in late February, so you're a little more hooked in because you weren't able to get as much. I don't know, man. I will tell you that I'm perhaps a little unique in that I haven't played Guild Wars 2 as a daily player since 2018. Almost 4 years ago. And since then, all I've done is log in and enjoy story releases for like a week or so, and then move on to something else. All I've done is kept up, treaded water. I've had moments where I've dabbled with coming back, but always that impulse faded very quickly because a part of it is because I didn't really know what I wanted to get out of it, and that's on me. And part of it is I just didn't feel as hooked in as this. You know, we'll see how long I actually stay engaged with this experience. I don't really feel like I want to let it go at all right now. I feel like I want to wrap myself up in it. There's still so much more to see, I think. Your soft spot for the original game, Kaineng says there's a lot of empty space in Guild Wars 2. Isn't really like a place where people live. It's your main sort of issue with it, I guess. Interesting. I guess. I mean, I never... It doesn't feel like a place where people live. They're all like the houses, and like there's so many more like friendly NPCs that are just around and live there. I don't know, like how long's it been since you played Factions?
He's probably down at the pub again.
It's like Jade Punk. It seems like you're just listing out all of your detailed grievances list. I'll be honest, like I'm talking and gushing about the character stuff, and you're just listing a bunch of complaints. I feel you, dude. I do. But I'm not giving the expansion a pass. I'm not saying it couldn't have been better. I'm just giving you my impression of the conclusion, the character stuff. And that stuff means a lot to me because I'll tell you what, like, it's the reason that I had to stop watching all the new Star Trek series, despite the fact that I love Star Trek, because they suck at writing characters. Their characters suck. They don't act according to motivations that clearly stem from things the players experience. I mean, that the characters experience. Somehow, this expansion got things about character writing right in a way that most genre fiction doesn't bother with.
That's great. Let me know what happens next. Don't worry, I will.
That's what I'm remarking at. And I think a lot of the mechanical stuff, too, I'll learn to appreciate it more. I never expected it to feel like Guild Wars 1 Cantha. I don't know if it's reasonable to expect that it should feel like Guild Wars 1 Cantha. We have to remember that the games that are made are not just a product of the artistic visions of the people who work on them, but they're also a product of the technology available at the time. Maybe Cantha felt like it did, not because they wanted to make this claustrophobic thing with a bunch of empty-looking houses, but because that's what the technology could do at the time. I don't know, I'm probably going to go back and play Guild Wars 1 Faction at some point this year. I don't know when that'll be, but I want to do it.
I think good content for it. Factions was developed in like less than a year, right?
All the Guild Wars 1 expansions were done at a blistering pace. Nightfall came out 6 months after Factions.
It's outrageous.
6 months! That's how long they take on a Living World release for Guild Wars 2.
And I think it being a small zone and really dense is a byproduct of that, right? Must be.
I guess. I don't know. It's just a funny comparison. But
unrelated, stumbled into a puzzle room in Echovald, and it is fucking cool, and I don't know how to do most of it.
A puzzle what? A puzzle room?
It's like a puzzle dungeon.
Interesting.
And to gain access to it, which is also a POI, you have to do achievement.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
One specific audio track. There's some murmuring that really brings the area alive to you for some reason. Yeah. Well, I mean, Guild Wars 1 did a lot of really cool things at the time. I think that it evokes a thing that Guild Wars 2 can't, because Guild Wars 1 doesn't have a lot of voice acting clogging up the soundscape. It's very sparse. Like, I've described this vibe of it in the past. It's like entering like a quiet cathedral. And yes, there are enemies, but it's somehow more restrained. It feels more civilized, even so, whereas this can feel very chaotic at times. Everything's in Echovald pretty fun, yeah. Anyway, I would love to join you, Will, but actually, after I get done reminiscing, I'm gonna have to call it a night, because
it is almost midnight.
We have a dense day of apartment hunting scheduled for tomorrow.
Yeah,
I gotta be up early. Yeah.
I will be back here doing your ever interest.
Yeah, no, I'm sure I'll be back in the evenings to play some more. Unless we find the place of our dreams and need to make a bunch of plans. We'll see.
Hey, it could happen.
Yeah, we have a few weeks to figure it out. So I'm just not trying to get attached to anything. Fishing is growing on you at this soundtrack, but you really need those keybinds to engage with more frequently.
Tough call.
Yeah, not being able to use a keybind to get out your fishing rod or your, what you call it, skiff is annoying. But, you know, like the way I played the game this week, I probably put in a solid like 25, 30 hours. I don't know. I'll see what my playthrough is like at the end of, after I look at the stream playlist. I won't play the game like this again. You know, I won't play Guild Wars 2 for 30 hours in a week, probably until the next expansion comes out. if there ever is one. And there are major question marks in my head about what the future of Guild Wars 2 is with all of these characters we know and love. It could be that this is just a good chance for Renet to reset and let us embrace a new cast of characters to carry the story forward. I very clearly see Yao being part of that cast. I see Rama being part of that cast. I see June potentially. I don't think we're going to get rid of Timey no matter what we do. But I could see us saying goodbye to, like, Logan. I could see us saying goodbye to maybe Ritlock, Canuck. I can see us saying goodbye to Marjorie and Kaz, especially after that. And it's interesting that we didn't see Zoja at all, isn't it? That was rolled in with the new. I think that's what we're supposed to get from this twist. And I think if we ever hear Dragon's Watch referenced in the future, it's going to be as a thing of the past. Kind of like when Season 1 happened, and we were all talking about Destiny's Edge still. Dragon's Watch will be an era of Guild Wars 2. Really the first era of Guild Wars 2, to be honest. The live release era. Up until now. Yeah, I feel really invigorated by that ending. And the interesting thing about it is, I also feel like I could let go of the game at this point a little bit more peacefully than I could before. I don't know if I will. And I've already let go of the game a few times in the past, in the last few years. But it was never with a sense of, like, peace. It was always with a sense of, okay, I guess I better stop trying, you know? Like, I guess I better give up. But this is like, kind of like being given a big permission slip to say, if you've been following Guild Wars 2 since launch, and you're trying to move on, this could be your moment. And it's kind of beautiful to let old things die. It leaves room for new things to be born. The cycle's reborn, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Who knows what Guild Wars 2 will be? And that's it. Yes, friends, Guild Wars 2, End of Dragons. I just want to leave you with a couple more notes of important things that have happened on the Guild Wars 2 timeline since these commentaries. One of the first things, one of the most important things, actually, to me, it might be the most important piece of news I've ever heard from ArenaNet, that a 4th expansion is currently in the works and is on the way. Last year, this is so huge. Last year, I did an analysis piece. I think it's called, like, The Keys to Guild Wars 2's Resurgence, I think is what I called it. Where I talked about reasons to doubt an expansion 4. You go back and watch it, and you'll hear a fan who feels resigned to being cynical about the thing he loves, which is where I was. I think it's where a lot of people in the Guild Wars 2 scene have been for years, since the conclusion of Season 4 and the stumble into the Icebird saga. Even the announcement of End of Dragons did not shock me out of the cynical mindset, because I still wasn't convinced that there wasn't in some way a studio attempt to be done with this, to have End of Dragons be the end of it. They even said in their blog post in 2021 that End of Dragons was not the end, but what does that mean? An end to them might not be the same as an end to us. To me, a Guild Wars 2 that is sustained entirely by episodic content like Living World and has 0 expansions, which they tried to sell us on in the Icebird Saga, to me, that is a sort of death. There's something that expansions can do that episodic content can never do. Ever. You can bring in big systems that span a ton of literal physical space in this world and have a continuity of of meaning and of story that is unmatched in the episodic world. Anyway, um, so for me, hearing that expansion 4 is coming was an incredible, beautiful shock. And to me is a sign that really, if you enjoy Guild Wars 2, you can look forward to years more of it. And with what we saw from End of Dragons, I feel so good about what that means. How incredible. And shout out to ArenaNet for everything y'all have done, everything y'all have been through to get us here and to get us where we're going. I know, well, I don't know. Maybe I feel how hard it is. I know it's hard to serve this community, to build this world. I know. The other thing that's very important that's happening was also announced after the expansion is ArenaNet told us that the Steam release is not a meme. They really want to do it. Now, a Steam release is super important. And I might do a separate piece of content talking about it in more detail, but high level, a Steam release is almost an expansion level of hype for a community like this. Because it's going to bring in so many more people. This has been proven. Other MMOs have done this and seen a breath of life breathed in by Steam. And I'm really happy because actually, was it today? No, it was yesterday. Yesterday, the very first re-release of the Living World Season 1 content, Flame and Frost, hit Guild Wars 2. This is content that is essential in laying the foundation for the characters who are still with us at the end of Dragons. Bram, Rox, Marjorie, Casimir. They are introduced to us in Living World Season 1. All that content came into the game with the idea that people would be wanting to play this game in order to experience it and see the world move on. And the content's gone. You couldn't get to it. For years, Living World Season 1 was gone forever. And out of nowhere, after the expansion launch, Arena came to us and said, turns out forever is not as long as you think. And all that old content that is essential for bridging the gap between the end of the personal story, where you confront Seitung, and the beginning of Season 2, where we begin to explore the western part of Tyria out in the Maguma Wastes, is coming back. And it's going to create a critical content bridge between two parts of the game that are both good, but have been really awkward sitting next to each other for years and years and years. All these are great signs for the future of this game. Now, undoubtedly, ArenaNet is working on other things, as they should be. And undoubtedly, we'll start to hear murmurs of other projects at some point down the line. But Guild Wars 2 seems to be a golden goose, and it looks like it's not laid its last golden egg. I'll be there. Look forward to seeing y'all there. Let me know what you think. And I'll catch you on the flip side. Later.